Welcome to part 2, where we're going to create the character animations for moving left and right. Let's get started. Right click, go to paper ZD, and then we're going to create an animation source. And I'm just going to call it AS_player. Once you're here, this is the general layout for all of your animations that will be held within your character. Let's just get started. So just add new animation sequence. I'm just going to create idle first. Animation data. We're going to do player idle right. Now you see the player. Perfect. And we can do a quick new animation source. We'll do run. And we're going to make this a multi-directional sequence. And so this is the direction that your player will be facing. So think of it as an analog stick. When your analog stick is on the left, you face left. When it's on the right, you face right. When it's up or down, you face those directions. And since we're making a platformer game, we actually don't really need the top two, but this makes it a lot easier for switching your character around. We're just going to do right since we have right. Flipbook, run, right. I'm actually going to import the left directions. Alright, so now we go to run. If this is frozen for you, uncheck multi-directional sequence, and you're actually going to click run right. And what this is doing is it's its base animation. So this is how many frames is setting for the animation multi-directional sequence. So when you check it, it'll show player run right, it'll play. So there's 8 frames, and that's why you want to keep your frames consistent. So when you have something that's multi-directional, you want to keep those in the same frame amount so it doesn't get cut off in any way. Sprite 0, we're just going to bring in, let's just do the idle R. This is just for reference, and I like to scale all my characters up 4 times just so I don't have to do any major changes to the capsule. One thing you do want to do is bring the feet down. This looks about right. We can always change that later, but you just want to bring it down to the bottom of the capsule. And you can make the capsule any size you like. Yeah, so make your capsule 60. And then the radius 26. I think that's perfect. Right. So now let's set up the input. Because right now, if you drag out your player, he will be there, but you won't be able to move. You don't even have control over it, but here it is. This is what you've done. Let's go ahead and create a game mode. So new blueprint class, call it game mode base. And then we're just going to do GM for game mode. And I'm just going to do platformer tut. You can name it whatever you want. This will just be the main game mode for your main game. You're just going to open it. Default pawn class, you want to change it to player. Compile and save. Edits, you want to go to project settings under maps and modes. At the top, right here, you want to go to default game mode, change that to GM platformer tut, which is the one that we just made. Perfect. Let's get some input in. So now we're just going to create a folder called input. I'm going to make it a light blue, something like that. And then we're going to right click, create input. By the way, this is strict to Unreal Engine 5.1. If you have the older Unreal Engine, anything before 5.1, it will not work. But you are going to do input mapping context. And then I just do, for naming conventions, IMC player. Sweet. And we're going to create a few mappings. So as you can see, there's nothing to choose from. Go back to your content browser, right click, input, and then do input action. And then IA_walk. Or run, whichever one you choose. So once you open up the IA walk, you're going to not change anything except for the value type, and you're going to change it from digital bool to axis 2D and push save. Alright, continuing on with input. So we have the walk, that's all you need, so you can go ahead and close out of this. After that, we're going to create input action, IA jump. With this, we're actually just going to leave it alone, so you can save and close. And so this is all we'll do for now. But we'll open up the IMC player, and then we'll just do keybinds for walk. And so for this, we're just going to do first mapping is IA walk. Change keybind. You can press the key value, push W, press the plus button, or push the keyboard, press A, plus S, plus D. WASD. This is how you move. One more mapping, and we are just going to make this jump. We'll add more later, but for now, this will do. So for W, we actually, you can open it up, you can see all these options. We don't have to touch any of these for W. For A, for the modifier, we're going to create one modifier. It's going to be negate, push save. And then for S, we don't have to do anything for S. For D, we don't have to do anything for D either. Since we're not technically moving up or down, we don't need to do anything for A and S. We are adding this into the project though, just in case we add features like falling down faster, like, or A as in aiming up or something like that. But so far we'll only be able to move A and D since it's a platformer game. But for spacebar, we don't need anything for spacebar except for the bind. So save, exit out of IMC, go to player. So since we want our character to be moving left and right and you don't want it to go forward and back, since it's a platformer game, you want to type in constraints. And what you'll actually do here is, and then what you're going to do is actually lock position and on the y-axis. So then you can only go left and right, which is the x-axis. Because as you can see, the y-axis comes forward, and that means that the player would be able to come forward, but you don't want that. So you just lock that into place. That guarantees your character will not move. Sweet, now let's get our player to walk. Then begin play. Cast to player controller. I'm actually going to delete these two. We could bring them in later when we need them. By the way, if you highlight 2 and press Q, it lines up your graph. So you could go like that, boom, it's all lined up. Go ahead and go to Object, Get Controller. Set that up there. Bring it out. Add mapping context. And it's going to be the third option. Add mapping context. And under as player controller, you're going to do enhanced. And it's going to be the function here, get enhanced input local player subsystem. You're just going to put that right in between and plug this in to the target. And mapping context, what you're going to do is you're going to do your IMC player. And there you go. That's all you need for now. Before we push play, we want to add in camera. Add camera. And you want to also, with the capsule component selected, add a spring arm. And then grab your camera and attach it so it's parented to the spring arm. The spring arm is the parent. And so what you could do, you can see that it's behind your character. So if you were to compile and press play right now, you can see you're way behind your character. And what you're going to do is actually take your spring arm, clear your filter, get your rotation, and you're going to rotate it negative 90 degrees. So it'll face your player at all times. And what you could do too is bring it up a little bit, just so the camera is above your player, kind of like that. And the reason why you see 2 is because there's no player start. What we could do is delete it and then add basics player start. And you can bring it up. Boom. There you go. We just can't move quite yet. And since we're a little close to the player, you can click on your spring arm. Target arm length, let's just make it 1,000 at first. Let's see how it looks. Maybe that's a little too far. Let's try 600. Boom. I think that's pretty good for now. Awesome. After you have your spring arm set up, let's finish up the input. So you could put it wherever you want. I'm going to put it right below. So you're going to right click and search IA walk. So that's going to be your move. And really quick, I'm actually going to rename walk to move. It'll make things just a bit easier. IA move. So triggered, drag it out, add movement inputs, enter, highlight, press Q to make sure it's straight if you want. And after that, we're going to create a variable called is holding move question mark. It's going to be a boolean, and we are going to drag it out, do set start is holding move checked, and then if you click this, click your whatever node, Control D is duplicate, completed, and bring that down, and uncheck is holding move. And what you're going to do here is bring action value and split struct pen. Alright, after that, grab action value X, and we're going to plug it into the first scale value. One thing you could do is double click the line. You could bring it down just to make it a little bit better looking. And what we could do here is set the world direction to 1 on the X value. And we're going to create one more variable, and we're going to call it directionality. And under this boolean, we're actually going to change it to a vector 2D, and it's just going to be this last option here. Once you do that, you're going to drag it out, set directionality, split struct pen, the X. So once you drag it out, connect this to this node, which is the X. It'll just feed right into both. Connect these two. I'm going to double click on this just to make it nice and snug and looking good. This is what it should look like when it's done. There we go, we can move. You can't really tell right now because it's kind of dark, but you can see we're at the edge. Yeah, we can move. We just got to get those animations in. Really quick, we're just going to create the jump. Super, super easy. IA jump. Do the one with the arrow. So on jump, we're actually just going to go under the started, and all you need to do is type in jump. That is it. And on completed, stop jumping. Easy, bro. So push play. Boom. We're jumping. Let's go. So once you got your player to jump and move, what we're going to do is create the animation. So we're just going to right click, paper ZD, go to paper ZD and MVP, click that, and then click your AS player. And then to name it, I'm going to do ABP for animation blueprint player. Double click, open it up. And so first thing we're going to do before we go to the actual animation tree is we are going to cast to BP player. Okay, we're going to go from the object and do get owning actor. After you get owning actor, we're going to create a variable, and we're going to name it as BP player. I'm going to do an underscore right here. And under this category pick, you are going to search for BP player. And you're going to hover over this one where it says BP player and scroll over to the object reference, the light blue or like the medium blue object reference, the top one. Then drag it out, set as BP player, connect the two, and connect the two. Push compile. What this is doing is when the game basically starts, it casts to the player, to our player, and it makes this sprite comply with whatever animations we are going to set up in the animation graph. So let's head on over to the animation graph. If this is not open, you can go over here, double click it, it'll open up for you. So first thing we're going to do is drag out from the output animation, and we're going to do set directionality, and we are going to grab our variable, which is as BP player, get as BP player, and drag it out, type in directionality. We're going to get the directionality. So whichever way that our player is facing by our movement, this arrow will turn based on where you're facing. So if you're walking right, this arrow will be right. If you're walking left, this arrow will be left. Once we drag that into here, it'll set the direction of your animation. Once you connect these two, you're going to drag out the animation, type in state machine. I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to rename it to locomotion. You can name it to whatever you like. Compile and save. Double click on the locomotion. First, going to create the idle and the jump. Let's, on the out, go to animation state, and we're going to name this idle. Double click, and we are going to pull out the results and do play idle. And where this idle option is coming from is actually within the animations. It could be found in the AS player. Also, quick tip, if this is closed and you just want a quick way to get to your animations, up here on the top right, you can click the animation checkmark and it brings you over to the animations. Nice and easy. And so now you can go back to blueprints. You can switch between the two super fast. It's really nice. So yeah, once you're done here, you play the idle, go back to your locomotion. We are going to create so if you hold here, pull it out, another animation state. We're going to call this run. And you'll see this pop up. And so what you want to do is double click it. And this is going to be what flows into run. What will determine if you go from idle to run. So double click, result, and all we're going to do here is as BP player, get velocity, scroll all the way down until you find the one on the very bottom that's simple, and right click, split struct pin, and return value X, drag that out, and do exclamation point for not equal, and we're just going to pull these back, and we're going to drag this into can enter transition. That's it. So once you complete this, go back to your locomotion. So if you double click run, what we're going to do here is you're just going to pull out from the results, type in run, play run, that is it. After you put in the animation for run, you want to drag an arrow back, create transition, run to idle. So you want to double click this, same thing as BP player, get velocity, and you want to make this equal, equal. Split struct pen, equal, choose the bottom one here, connect the two, go to your BP player, create a variable called run play rate, so run play rate, and make it a float. Somehow it got out of my editing, so it's already here, but that's how you create it. You just click here, and then go to float, click float, and make sure that you compile. And when you click on it again, set the run play rate to 1 on the right. So when you go to as BP player, get as BP player, you're going to drag out, type in run play rate, go from the results, and type in run. Next, while play run is selected, you want to go over to the play rate and expose it. and then connect the two, compile and save. Final thing, you want to go to the BP player and you want to go to the animation component on the top left bottom of the list. Over here where it says paper ZD anim instance class, change none to ABP player. Compile and save. Push play. There you go. You're running around and it works both ways.